Have a seat on your porcelain throne. It's time to talk some shit on the Powell movement.
Welcome to the Powell movement. I'm your host, Mike Powell, and while I keep saying I'm not going to get political in these intros, and I'm not totally going to go on that kind of a rant, I can't not say anything about what's going on right now because I'm afraid of losing listeners. Shit is fucked right now. If you stop listening to this podcast because I say our country is turning into a global joke, actually a global nightmare, well, then I feel that makes you part of the problem. I can't turn a blind eye. Look, at this point, regardless of what you or what I voted for, what is happening right now is wrong, plain and simple. People are dying at the hands of our government and things are getting worse by the day. And you can be one of those people who are like, oh, fuck around and find out and don't mess with the government and stuff like that. You know what? People have messed with the government for a long, long time. Like, people get the shit beat out of them by cops and things like that. But to die, to be murdered on the streets, that's the fucked up part for me. But either way, now, as the world collectively watches our implosion, we're fucked. And not everybody will admit that the problem that we have is an orange man who thinks he's a fucking god. I mean, the good news is that piece of shit eats McDonald's every day, and while I never root for anybody to die because my wife just died and I know how painful that is, I'll make one exception and wish him a big fucking McHeart explosion. And that's terrible of me. But I mean, it would be better for the world, and while you're not supposed to root for death, everybody was rooting for bin Laden to die, so it's cool in that one case. We can make an exception here as well. I'm sure a lot of people around the world feel the same way about Trump as they did about bin Laden. But he's our leader. These days, I feel like America should be spelled the way Ice Cube spelled it on his album with 3 Ks. The thing is, before we became such a piece of shit country, and even in his first term, I thought we were a great nation, the greatest, given that we had our problems with leadership. But either way, I still thought America was great. Now, I'm embarrassed and I think we're a joke. And that's sad. If I were from any other country in the world, I would boycott the World Cup, I would boycott the Olympics, and I wouldn't spend any travel dollars coming to America. If you didn't know, based on the message coming from our leadership, we, well, not all of us, but we hate you and we don't want you coming here anyways. I don't feel that way, though. I love the diversity that we have here, and whatever. My government rant is over. That wasn't too political. I don't know, was it? I'm sorry if I pissed you off, but I had to speak my piece. And you know, I'm always such a complainer, and I'll do some more with this week. The Seahawks made it to the Super Bowl. Normally, I would be going crazy and life would be so exciting for the next 2 weeks. I know this because Seattle has been here before and it was so much fun. And when this was going on in the past Super Bowl years, Ange and I would have people over for the games. And if we were traveling, we'd always end up at a Seahawks bar and we'd lose our minds and have so much fun drinking too many beers and high-fiving tons of strangers. It was always such a good time. Well, this year, Ange isn't here with us anymore. And every week the season has gone on, it's made it more painful thinking of how excited she would be. Because with her sickness, a lot of the things that created joy in life had been taken away. But the Seahawks games, they were the one thing that was still entertaining and we got some great family time together watching those games. So every week this season goes on, I just miss Ange more and more and know how excited she would be. And the really wild thing about this season is that we didn't expect the Hawks to be great this year. And that was a pleasant surprise. But the last time the Seahawks played the Patriots in the Super Bowl, I didn't care that much either. I did go to the NFC Championship game against the Packers, which was the most exciting sporting event I've ever been to. And then the second that game ended, I sprinted out of the stadium, got on a plane, and went to the SIA trade show to set up the K2 booth. I was planning on being in Denver for that Super Bowl. I set up for the show the next day in Denver, and then I receive a call that my grandfather, who I was extremely close with, was dying. So I flew home, and Dannon died on a Saturday, and then the Seahawks lost to the Patriots on Sunday. The game didn't matter that much to me. Maybe it would have cheered me up a little bit if the Seahawks won, but they didn't. And on Monday, I started my speech at the funeral with Dannon would have wanted Marshawn Lynch to run that ball. That Super Bowl loss, though, it didn't bother me at all because I lost something so much more important to me. So this year, yeah, the Hawks are going, and Keaton and I are going to have people over and we're going to celebrate, but it's not going to be the same without Ange. Nothing ever will be. And that's really hard to accept. And my life sucks at times. And my guest, her life sucks at times too. Kaya Turski is a rollerblader turned skier, and not just any skier. She's an 8-time X Games gold medalist, 5-time AFP world champion, amongst so many other titles. While Kaya's had an incredible career, she's paid the price, and pain plays a huge part in her daily life because of that. Before we get into Kaya's story, I want to ask you to do a couple things for me. Share my social media posts and tell a friend about the show. Both of those things really do help the show grow and is greatly appreciated. On top of that, please support my incredible sponsors who make this thing happen. They are Elan Skis, Outdoor Research, Best Day Brewing, Ski Idaho, and Insta360 Video. Now it's time to chat with Kaya Turski. It's X Games season. X Games starts tonight. And is this something that you're still excited about and something that you'll be tuning in and watching all the action at X Games?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I love the X Games. It was some of the best memories of my life were in Aspen, so I'll definitely be tuning in.
Have you been back to an X Games since you've competed?
I have not been back, no.
Would it be a tough thing for you to do where you've spent your whole life training, competing, and winning, and then going back to an X Games event where you probably still feel like you kind of have it a little bit and you're not competing and you're kind of just on the sidelines? Would that be a difficult thing?
You know what, Mike? I don't think so. I think I'd feel the energy. I'd get right into the hype. You know, one of the reasons I haven't gone back is I had some significant health issues and post-career, some stuff with concussion. And so just more stimulation is tough on my head. That's really kind of why I've steered clear, but I would absolutely love to go out there and cheer everyone on.
All right. Well, we are going to talk about what's going on with your head a little bit later, but I'm going to start the podcast off with inline skating, or rollerblading as I call it. I think you probably call it that as well, because when I think of Kaya Turski, I think of a badass street skater who may be one of the best women of our time. So let's start there. How did you get into rollerblading?
Wow. Well, thank you for the compliment right there. At my foundation, at my core, I am a rollerblader.
Yeah, skiing just happened. You're a rollerblader first.
That's right. That's right. So you were asking how I started with rollerblading?
Yes.
So I used to rollerblade a little bit here and there on the street with my dad. It was an activity we did together. And one day I was jumping a couple steps just because I always liked the extreme aspect of things. I always liked to challenge myself. And someone saw me do it and said, well, you should check out the skate park. There's a really big, cool skate park. It's called the Taj Mahal. It was downtown Montreal. And so that weekend, my dad took me and I just fell in love. I mean, this was the world that I had known I'd been seeking, but this is the answer to my dreams. So I was 10 years old. And the moment I dropped into my first ramp, I never looked back. I spent every weekend there training, practicing, just hanging out with my homies, loving life.
And before that, were you one of those kids that was jumping off everything they saw and like a risk taker? And so finding this was home?
Yes, exactly. I was a bit of a wild child, not in the sense that I was uncontrollable, but definitely loved leaning into the extreme aspect of most things. So most kids would be sliding down the slide and I'd be jumping off the top of the slide or seeing if I could jump over benches, just climbing trees, climbing the fence in the backyard. I love the edge.
It sounds like tomboy behavior. We really don't call it tomboy anymore, but in this podcast, I still bring it up because it's how I grew up hearing it. But was that who you were as a kid? Like spending time in the skate park all the time in a world that's like male dominated and you're the tomboy girl there?
I don't know if I guess I was a tomboy. It's true. That term is, I don't know if it's outdated. It doesn't matter. I definitely had most of my homies, most of my crew were guys, but my closest, most intimate crew were 2 other girls, or maybe 3 others at one point. We just had this like tight-knit group of girls, of women, and we were pretty badass. So it was both, but later on in my career, when I was doing a lot of street skating, it was just me and the boys.
Yeah. And when you think about being around guys a lot of the times and you being an athlete, were you better than a lot of the guys most of the time when you were playing sports with them?
I was always up there, on par at least. If I competed with the boys, I often beat them, which is pretty cool.
And did you play any team sports at all, or was it just individual sports?
I played rugby in high school.
Okay.
I was on a women's team. And otherwise, I didn't really play other sports. I found rollerblading when I was 10, and that's it. I locked right in. So I've always been an individual sport, or mostly been an individual sport kind of gal.
And skating's your thing, and you're at the skate park every day, I would think, after school and then all weekend. And back then, the infrastructure of AM contests was pretty robust. I mean, there was a lot of things that fed you into the ASA Pro level back there in skating. And was your goal in skating at some point to become an ASA Pro?
You know, when I first joined, I didn't know about the ASA tour. I knew about X Games. I
Okay.
always wanted to be an X Games athlete. This was the dream for me. And so I wanted to get on the course, you know. I want to call it a slopestyle course, but it's not. I wanted to get in the park in X Games Street, rollerblading. And unfortunately, by the time I kind of rose and got to that level, rollerblading wasn't an X Games sport anymore. But that's when I learned about ASA. And so, yeah, earlier on in my career, I did a local comps here and there and mostly competed with the boys, with the guys. And then later on, I think I was 14 when I competed at the ASA Amateur World Champs in LA. And that kind of shot me into the pro scene.
Before you made it to the pro scene, when you're coming up and you're looking at the ASA pros and you're aware that they exist, are you looking at people like Fallon and Jenna Downing and Deborah West and thinking, I want to be like them? Or are you looking at Feinberg and Shima and people like that and being like, I want to be like them?
Well, I wanted to be just like Fabiola da Silva. Fab was my idol always. First time I saw her on TV, I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. The only way I can describe it is someone so badass, you know, competing with the boys, beating the boys on a professional level. It was just so captivating, and I remember how she made me feel. That feeling has always stuck with me and something I carried through and hope that I kind of rippled out for others. That was always a big goal or a hope for me as I competed. I met Fallon, I met Katie Ketchum, a lot of great female athletes, Jenna Downing, later on in ASA, and they were definitely an inspiration for me as well. But I was definitely one of those kids that just watched DVDs over and over and over. And so I really enjoyed watching Chris Haffey, Brian Aragon, Dustin Latimer, Shima. So big inspirations for me as well.
Like all the mind game stuff early on was probably a big influence.
Yeah, I love the mind. I still wish I had mind game gear. It was just the coolest, most badass crew and team and so talented. And yeah, that was my era.
Words. Well, how about your town? I mean, Montreal had some heavy hitters, John Bergeron, Nicky Adams, dudes who killed it on skates, and guys who I'm generally afraid of as people. Did you skate with those guys, or was that before your time?
That's so funny. I skated with Nicky Adams, and he was pretty hardcore, that's for sure, but so talented and always very kind to me. We had a lot of talent indeed. Jan Fournette as well, John Bergeron, like you mentioned. I would see a lot of those guys at the skate park. So I met them, but I was so little, you know, and I think a lot of them not necessarily took me under their wing, but they had a lot of respect for me because I was so little and doing some cool stuff. So they always helped me out, gave me tips, and that was really helpful and made me feel special and cool.
And when you are that little and you're at the skate park and you're blowing everyone's mind on a daily basis, I'm sure all the older people are like, look at that girl Kaya right there. She's going to be the shit one day. Who's the first person that gives you something free and believes in you?
I think my earliest sponsor, if not one of my earliest, was D-Structure Pro Shop. So we had, and it still exists, this shop. Now it's actually a ski shop. But D-Structure was a rollerblade and ski shop back in the day, and they were posted up about a block away from the big skate park. So that's where we got all the gear. That's where all the cool mind game gear was, for example. And I hung out there a lot. And then I guess I caught their eye at some point, and they put me on the team. And then that's when I started to get some product flowed in.
So is that like Felix Ryu and that whole crew?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Felix Ryu was a big help for me, not just in rollerblading, but as I launched into my ski career.
Oh, yeah, he's the total transition, and he's able to create great images of you skiing and skating, I would think, and get that out to people, which is just a great guy to have in your corner because he knows everybody.
Absolutely. I owe Felix a lot. He propelled me into everything I had. He was such a great friend and such a great support for me.
So when you're spending a lot of the time at the park, and I know you as a gnarly street skater, you're hanging out at D Structure. Is that where you're going street skating with the crew from there and just going different places in Montreal? And like you meet from the park at D Structure and then just go street skate all night?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, everybody either hung out at the skate park or went to D Structure after school or whatever and hung out there. And so we would link up and then we'd go and shred up the town, do some gnarly ledges and rails. Had a blast.
The crew in Montreal and the events that happened there. I was there for the IMYTA Montreal. Were you there for that event?
No way. Yeah, I was. I think we had 2 IMYTAs. I'm not sure, but I competed in it, actually.
Okay, because I was the one where Shima, the big Olympic stadium, he gapped from one side to the other.
Yeah, that was crazy. So I was there. I witnessed that. That was insane.
Did those events have like a big impact on your young life? Like, holy shit, this is what I'm going to be, even though it didn't turn out that way?
Oh my God, yeah. Like I lived and breathed rollerblading. There was nothing else that existed. There was nothing else that mattered to me in my life. I was like a hardcore shredder. That's, what I identified as. And watching those events, taking part in those events, like I mentioned, I competed in IMYTA. I think the second year it came around was for me, I mean, first of all, some of the best memories of my life, like just really creating such a strong foundation for community, for competition, pushing my capacities, and just fueling off of bringing back that community aspect. Rollerblading it was such a cool thing to be part of because it was so intimate and everybody was on your side. Everybody was on your team, and I thrived in that culture.
There was a me against the world mentality where everybody hated the rollerbladers out there, but the rollerbladers had so much love for each other.
Yeah, that's it. Rollerblading isn't seen as very cool and everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but I am just eternally grateful that I found rollerblading. It is my first love through and through. And yeah, I guess because we aren't seen as the cool kids from outside, we band together, and we have a very, very tight-knit community for it.
The worst people I found that didn't like rollerbladers were Canadian skateboarders. Whether I went to a skate park in Vancouver, whether I went to one in Kamloops, whether I went to one in Montreal, anytime I went to a skate park in Canada, there seemed to be a fight between rollerbladers and skateboarders because the skateboarders are assholes and couldn't deal with the fact that they were letting people that they thought less cool skate at their park.
Oh gosh, yeah. I don't know if I have had enough experience to discriminate between Canadians and others. But, in Montreal, I gotta say, we all coexisted very well. I wouldn't say there was much of a grudge between us rollerbladers and skateboarders. And then I didn't travel all that much just to meet with other skaters. But I've seen, on TV, even people like Tanner Hall, unfortunately, kind of bashing rollerblading. And that's just a shame, because everyone's just trying to have a good time. Everyone's just trying to push their creative selves and be with their friends. So to each their own, at the end of the day, to each their own.
Yes, I agree with you. And back then, it was a different era of skating, too. It was all about hammers and going huge. And you were that one girl where if you didn't see your hair, you'd be like, holy shit, that dude is killing it. And when you think about paying the price, and I know you've paid it over and over and over, what was the biggest battle that you've had in the streets to get a trick? Does anything stand out?
Oh man. Well, first of all, thanks. Like that's the ultimate compliment, right? Is like not being able to discriminate between the genders and just saying like, wow, that's a good rollerblader and that's a badass rollerblader. So I appreciate it. I had so many battles out there. Can I think of something in particular?
I mean, you never got that D-structure ender, I feel like. It was like the big red gapped, and there was like a grassy area.
Oh, man. Yeah, thanks for reminding me that. I didn't get that D-structure ender. That was a tough one, and I tried that over and over, and now looking back, holy crap, like that was a massive, massive drop. Like to put myself in that kind of risk over and over was crazy. It was wild, So yeah, that was a battle. The Montreal Stadium ledge, the one I top-sold Fishbrain, that took a lot of tries. I mean, most clips you see in my segments, or many of them, they took a lot of tries. There was this, especially the hammers. sometimes you got to work for it. Same thing in skiing. What you see is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at your segment in Road to Nowhere, I believe, and I don't know if this bothered you at all, but the battle for the tricks, the whole intro of that segment is you destroying yourself. 15, 16, just absolute, you destroy your body in that intro. And were you psyched to see that, or are you almost bummed? Like, hey, I don't want my section to start out with me just crashing every time. I want people to see me land my tricks. Or did that not bother you?
It didn't bother me. The only thing that bothered me was that I had the F word. And, I swear I drop some bombs sometimes, but I didn't want that to be public. I didn't want that to be the first thing people hear out of my mouth, just because that's like when people Google me, that's what comes up. And so that was the only bummer. But no, I think it was kind of a cool contrast. Like, look, I'm getting worked out there. I'm working hard for the tricks, and what you see afterwards is the product of that.
And then with street skating, you being out on the streets all different times, and you're 17 years old, 16 years old, do your parents care at all? Or are they like, yeah, just go have fun? Do they support it all?
Oh, yeah. My parents were so supportive. And I think early on, my mom was like, oh, are you sure you want to spend all your time at the skate park? Like, I'm coming home, I'm all bruised up, I'm dirty. And she maybe hoped for something a little easier on my body, probably both my parents. But they saw the fire in my eye and my soul, and they knew I had to pursue, that edge. And so they were always on board. And even, it must be now, having grown up, and I'm not a parent now, but having nieces, knowing the kinds of things that I put myself through, I think it would be hard as a parent to watch their child go through it, but they were always there for me through the thick and thin.
Yeah, I can see it being very, very scary to watch all the risk that you put yourself in. But the reward is when they see 8 X Games gold medals, they have to just be like, I am so proud, and that was all worth it. And while it stressed us out, it is worth it at the end of the day.
They definitely were very, very proud. Yeah.
And then with blading, you were one of those skaters who was looked at as core. And who were the brands that eventually picked you up? Because it wasn't like you were going to the corporate K2s of the world. You were with all the cool brands in skate, I feel like.
Gosh, you're really taking me down back memory lane here.
That's what I do.
Yeah, I like it. Gosh, I remember one of my first sponsors was Razors. I also represented USD at some point. Both of those I loved. 616 was also a sponsor. D-Structure was by my side throughout my whole career. Shoot, you know what? I'm blanking, Mike. Like it's been 20 years, but I did have some great support. That's for sure. I did try to align myself with the companies that I thought were the ones that I loved, the stuff that I really wanted to rep and wear.
It's time for my first sponsor break, and I'm going to start out with Insta360 action cameras, the only 360 camera that matters these days. These are the best action cameras on the market. They capture everything around you in 8K 360-degree video. It's next to impossible to miss the shot, and your footage won't be shaky thanks to the super smooth stabilization system, which is so important when you're on the mountain. Insta360 developed their X5 and X4 Air cameras with skiers and snowboarders in mind, which means they feature a freeze-proof design, batteries with longer run times, and a super durable design that will have you getting footage from the park to powder. And when it comes to editing that footage, Insta360's proprietary editing program makes it easier than ever to create Hollywood-level content or just a simple edit for you and your friends to enjoy. It's easy. Insta360 is the best action camera on the market, and for listening to the Powell Movement, they're going to give you a special offer. When you head on over to Insta360.com, they're holding a ski bundle sale for their flagship 360-degree action cameras, including the X5 and X4 Air cameras. When you're at checkout after you make your purchase, enter the code POWELL, that's capital P-O-W-E-L-L, and you're going to get a free ski pole mount from the good folks at Insta360 cameras. Next up, it's Elan Skis. And if you haven't skied on an award-winning ripstick yet, you're missing out on something that ski brands have long said wasn't an option. A lightweight ski that powers through anything and truly rips. It's game-changing. And Elan, while they've been around for 80 years, have been changing the game of modern skiing by doing things like adding side cut to straight skis with the Elan SCX, which changed the whole industry. They're building skis by skiers in a place with ski culture in the Slovenian Alps. And most importantly, they're supporting local shops. When the competition goes and starts selling direct, Elan sticks by their retailers who have been by them since the beginning. Elan is just built differently, and they innovate with a purpose, and that's to make your on-snow experience better, easier, and more fun. It's this approach that brought you the Ripstick and all of their award-winning skis. And when you're in the market for a new pair, visit an Elan retailer, demo a pair of their skis, and you'll know why Elan has built a cult following here in the States. To find out more about all the skis or to find an Elan dealer, head on over to elanskis.com. My final sponsor this round is Best Day Brewing, and now is the time to think snow. And skiers, snowboarders, weekend warriors, tubers, sledders, snowbikers, snowmobilers, snowshoers, sled doggers, shovel racers, snow angel makers, ice skaters, snowball fighters, igloo builders, you get it. The doers of winter are starting to get ready to shred, and post-shred, it's all about après. And this year, do après the right way. Forget about the calories, forget about the alcohol, forget about not taking more runs on the mountain, forget about getting in trouble on the way home, because with a beer from Best Day Brewing, you don't have to worry about any negative consequences. Just incredible flavor. Blind taste tests prove that you won't be able to taste the difference between a Best Day and your favorite beer with alcohol. The only difference you'll notice is how good you'll feel in the morning, and you're going to remember what you did last night, which is almost refreshing as a Best Day itself. To celebrate your best day yet, next time you're at the store, pick up a 6-pack of Best Day. Or you can always buy it on your Alaska Airlines flight, Amazon.com, or head on over to bestdaybrewing.com to get the full assortment of Best Days. Those are my sponsors. Now it's time to jump back into the podcast. You're the equivalent of the best men's street skater in the world. And in the skate world, that dude was probably Chris Haffey at that time. He's probably making $5,000 a month from all of his sponsors combined if he was really hustling. Did you make what the guys were making at your level, or do you think you made less because you were a girl?
Oh, I made $0. I made no money.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, no, I made no money.
You never made anything from razors?
No.
That is crazy. I mean, you were literally the best street skater on the planet for a couple years. And I guess it makes sense why you kind of moved on to other things, but you didn't make anything.
Yeah, no, I didn't make any money, man.
That's great.
It was all love.
Did you get to go on trips? Did anybody pay for you to travel?
I don't know. I don't remember. I don't think so. Actually when I made the finals for the World Amateur ASA Tour, we grew up middle income, whatever, normal, and to send me to LA, cost a lot, so my mom's friends, she's got this Polish gang of friends, this crew, because we're Polish, and they gave me a check for $1,000 to send me to LA. That's what sent me off. So no, I had family support, and then later on when I worked, I supported myself, but I just, it was all from love, my friend.
Oh, man, that's crazy. Did you at least get to skate with Shima and some of the legends that you grew up idolizing?
I skated with Chris Haffey quite a lot because when Brandon invited me out to film my segment for Road to Nowhere, Haffey was there and basically guinea pigging everything for me, which was so kind. And at that point, I was 14 years old, and I was this little grom, I was starry-eyed, Chris Haffey was legendary. And so getting to know him and having him help me film that segment behind the scenes was so kind, so cool, and an incredible experience.
And then in the whole skate world, does it come to a point where you realize that the whole bottom is dropping out of the industry? Because at 14, you're traveling with Haffey, everything's good. By the time you're 17, skate's not in the X Games anymore. There's no real infrastructure. And where's your head at? This thing that I grew up loving, that I've thought my whole career was going to go in this direction, is now gone. What do I do?
Yeah, it was a tough one, to feel things losing traction, to see that we were having less support as an industry and less opportunity, less platforms to compete on. And that kind of coincided with my later high school years. So last 2-3 years of high school. And that's when I kind of got a little more involved in my social life, wanted to hang out with my friends. And so it just became the perfect mix, if you will, of just things eased off of rollerblading, and I leaned more into my regular life, if you will. And yeah, I guess that's definitely in part a product of there being very little support in the industry, very little opportunity.
Okay. And now I'm going to kind of go in a direction that I usually don't go on the podcast, but I feel like I need to bring it up, and I feel like I'll do it at this part right here. And it's talking about sexuality. I never talk about it on the podcast that much, but I do bring it up here and there. But when did you realize that you were different than other girls? Was that like in high school that you figured that out?
Yeah, it's so funny you bringing this up. I know I was pretty late to the game, 26 years old. So I was always very sporty, quote unquote tomboy, if you will, but I didn't really realize ladies were the way for me until my mid-20s.
So it wasn't like you had this big secret that you were keeping. You just had no idea in your mind.
No, I never kept a big secret. As soon as I found out, I told everybody. I told my family first and my friends, and then I made it pretty public right away because no shame. I'm very proud of who I am.
Oh, it's awesome. But I thought you might have some inner juxtaposition of like, how do I tell people and think about it and be worried about it? Because for a lot of people, it's not an easy thing. Like you just make it sound like it's no big deal, which is awesome because it should be no big deal. But a lot of people put a lot more weight onto that. And usually when they're able to tell people, it lets them kind of be themselves again. But that wasn't the case for you. It was just you figured it out when you were 26 and you let people know and you're good.
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky. I knew my parents would be supportive. My parents have always accepted me for who I am. And so I'm very lucky in that respect. And I understand why people would hold back in expressing or exposing themselves. So no judgment there on my end. And yeah, I felt comfortable in my community of friends, yeah, to be public about it. Never really looked back. But maybe, when I was younger, that part of me existed. I guess I didn't know her. And maybe there was a subconscious piece of, having a fear around it. But I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know. But, you never really know what's going on in a kid's mind.
Well, it seems like it didn't hurt you as a child. It wasn't like something that you thought about all the time, which is good.
It didn't hurt me, no.
So now I will get out of the awkward where I throw that right into the middle of the podcast. I'll go back to where we're supposed to talk about. And I was the skate team manager at K2, and that's why I know a lot about your skating. But I used to always try to push the K2 skate team to take their skills to the park. And Ryan Dawes grew up skiing. I'm like, Ryan, you can take all your ski skills and you can make a lot more money skiing, I betcha, because you can transfer all your air awareness and all your rail tricks over to skiing. But he always wanted to be on a snowboard because it was cooler. And whatever, he did that. It was the whole like skateboard rollerblade thing. But he was a snowboarder and that was fine. But you were one of the people that made that switch. And I know you skied a little when you were younger, but how did you get back into skiing?
Yeah, I never really even thought about it until D-Structure invited me to their ski jam one spring. And so you're right, I skied when I was very little, kind of weekend warrior style. My parents took me out on the hill, but I never really clicked with it. I didn't fall in love like I did in rollerblading, and I wasn't doing anything freestyle. And so kind of whittled away when I found rollerblading. I didn't ski again. And then I think I was 17, maybe 16 when D-Structure invited me to that jam. And I got on, I clicked into some skis and it was very awkward. I mean, my skiing was subpar, to say the least, like just very awkward. But I had some kind of foundation from when I was a kid. And then I got in the park, and even though it was very awkward looking, I could do rails. I could jump a little bit. I understood transitions. I had that air awareness. I had that foundation from rollerblading. So I remember thinking like, wow, I felt this spark, I felt this excitement, something that I had felt around rollerblading, but because of, what we just discussed, less support, less platforms to compete on, I'd kind of lost that, or it wasn't as strong. And so when I tried skiing, I thought, wow, like, this is exciting. This is cool. I think I can be good at this. This makes sense to me. I got to give this a shot.
And I think you were already friends with some skiers because like the AOL chat rooms were big back in the day, and a lot of people connected through those chat rooms. And it sounds like you might have been friends with Ashley Battersby when she was like all T-dogging you for being a great rollerblader, and that you guys were, talking skiing and stuff on the internet. Was she like sending you ski clips and encouraging you as well?
I think so. I don't remember exactly when I met Ashley, but I think she must have messaged me when I was probably rollerblading or just starting skiing, and she saw that I'd been a rollerblader, so we had that in common. And then of course I checked out her page and was just like blown away with what she was doing, the photos, the edits. Like, she was badass and so stylish. Definitely one of my big influences when I started skiing. I met Kim Lamar as well early on at that D-Structure jam when I first clicked into skis. So I met a few skiers, and then, I got on the scene when I was 17, and then like things just took off really quickly. Like, Solomon signed me that summer, just 6 months into me giving skiing a go. So everything ramped up quick, and so I met a lot of people on the scene pretty quickly.
You're this 17-year-old pro skater, and when you tell your parents that, hey, I'm going to move to Whistler and become a pro skier, are they like, what are you talking about? You're a skater.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what happened. Everybody, my parents, my friends were like, what are you talking about? Like, you don't ski, you rollerblade. And I was telling everyone, like, I know, but I think I can be good at this. Like, I think I can be really good at this. And this was my last year of high school. And so I convinced my parents to let me move out west to Whistler when I graduated. And, for some reluctance, some hesitance, because I guess it's breaking the traditional mold, and all my friends were going to college, and that was the safe route. And I basically promised my parents I'll go back to school eventually. That was always my intent. But I needed to pursue this opportunity. And so I guess kind of back to or similarly to when I was a child, and my parents saw that spark in me when I discovered rollerblading, they supported my move out west as well.
And so I read that you were a sandwich artist for months, and that was how you earned money to go to Whistler because rollerblading didn't pay you any money?
Yeah, you've done your homework, I see. Yes, I was a sandwich artist. So my first job was at Subway, and I'm very proud to have been a sandwich artist. I worked there for about a year, and that's how I saved up, I don't know, a couple $1,000s to move out west to live with my auntie in Squamish, so about an hour away from Whistler. At the time, it was an hour away. Took the Greyhound bus every single day to the hill.
Whoa.
And back, and just taught myself to ski. I was kind of alone out there. I met a couple Japanese skiers, and I wish I remember. I wish I was still in touch with them. But yeah, it was just kind of me and myself and I. And yeah, it goes back to being a sandwich artist. That's how I made the dream possible.
And you have the little foundation from when you were a kid, but how long did it take you to learn how to ski switch and learn how to carve turns and actually ski? Because I'm sure all the air awareness is there, all the rail awareness is there, because you're used to balancing on a quarter. So on skis, it's a lot easier. It's a little different, but a lot easier. How long did it take you to actually learn how to ski?
If you ask different people, they might give you different answers. I don't think I was a good skier for a few years. It takes a solid while to build a good foundation to become a good skier. And I wouldn't say that I picked that up quickly. What I picked up quickly is the air piece, like you mentioned. So I was awkward in between features,
Right.
but then in the air I knew what I was doing. And so I don't know, it was 2 months on skis before I landed a Switch 720, just because I could do it on rollerblades. I knew exactly what the motion felt like. It was just a matter of understanding the timing a little bit. It was different with the skis, but otherwise it was all the same. So it really all clicked quickly. But in terms of foundation, in terms of actual ski legitimacy, it took me, I think, years.
But you're in Whistler for less than a year when you realize, holy shit, I not only can do this, but this is going to take me way further than skating ever could have.
Yeah, it really did ramp up quite quickly. I went out there in January, and then I did, I think, what was it called? The Vermont Open in March, and I won that.
That's a big contest.
Yeah, it was a big contest. I did a cork 720. I did 540 switch 720. No grab, I don't think, on the switch 7, but was still pretty legit for having skied 2 months. It really took off quickly. I'm telling you, the rollerblading, it built my foundation. It really set me up for a very quick rocket style debut in skiing.
You said Solomon signed you in the summer, so is it right after the Vermont Open that all the brands start picking you up?
Yeah, so I went back after Vermont Open back to Whistler, and I think Poor Boys was filming there. And I think Peter Olenek, I'm pretty sure it was Peter Olenek. I don't remember who else was in the crew, but I did a big switch 7. And I think that probably got back to Solomon. And they got in touch with me in the spring and May. And I think by June I signed on the pro team. So alongside Sammy Carlson and Simon Dumont and Peter and Jen Hudak. So it's pretty quick.
That is
ride.
So crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy, man. It was really crazy.
And then after you sign all your ski deals, like a couple months later, skiing almost kills you. What happened?
Yeah, oh my gosh. Wow, we're really going down memory lane here.
I know. Well, it's the podcast.
Yeah, skiing did almost kill me, indeed. My first pro event ever. So I just signed on Solomon's pro team. I'm coming in hot. I'm feeling good. I got a lot to prove. I feel like $1 million, I'm invincible at this point. And go to my first event in November, I think it was, Icer Air in San Francisco, a big air. So it's built on scaffolding in the in the San Francisco Giants Stadium.
Yep, with the net in between, right?
Exactly, the net. And you know what? The net they only put up after a few jumps when people were like, this is just really sketchy. So I think that event just wasn't very well planned or well thought out. And unfortunately, by the time I competed in the afternoon, the snow had melted significantly in the landing, which narrowed it. So I did a 540, I think probably landed about 530, which, if those of you who are listening who are skiers, rollerbladers, rotations, that's 10 degrees off. So I landed a slightly off, which took me going backwards to the side a little bit at an angle, and found myself on the side of the landing, which was all wood and 2x4s nailed in along the side as steps. And so I just started sliding down these steps, but at Mach speed. I don't know, who knows what the speed was, but it was immense. And then I caught an edge and just slammed so hard, I sliced my pancreas in half over my spine.
Holy
Boom.
Shit.
Yeah, it was a heavy hit, and I remember it all because I didn't lose consciousness, and I just remember thinking, wow, this is what it feels like to break all your ribs. I just was extremely winded, thought that I'd just broken all my bones in my chest, and then I started coughing blood, and that's when we knew it was very significant. It was dangerous.
And so you just rushed to the hospital right there?
Yeah, rushed to the hospital, exactly. And I mean, the first week, I pretty much don't remember anything from it other, they sedated me right away. I went into surgery. I had 3 surgeries, actually. And I was in the ICU for a week. I remember waking up with all sorts of machines around me, the tube and, going down to my stomach and all these things just, I don't know, keeping me intact. And it was pretty gnarly. Second week, it wasn't ICU anymore, but still significant. I had a huge incision to heal. And, splitting an internal organ is a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
Big surgery and a big recovery. So that was my debut. And then I came back on snow and soon after blew my knee. So I had my first 2 years on the scene were a ton of hardship, big challenge.
It's time for my second round of sponsors, and I'm going to start out with Outdoor Research. And if you haven't checked out outdoorresearch.com in the past week or so, then you haven't seen the brand new winter line, which looks incredible. I could spend a lot of this ad telling you all the tech and why Outdoor Research is better, but know that in the 1980s and the early 90s, Outdoor Research built a reputation on functional quality outdoor gear that pushed the limits of innovative possibilities. And those who were function first were all about OR gear, because it was and it still is built better, and Outdoor Research is still pushing those limits of innovation. This year, the outerwear focuses on 3 new collections, the Cloud Chaser for backcountry and the Powderverse and Hemisphere collections for freeride, as well as some staples in the line like the Snow Crew collection. These outerwear systems are styled for and by athletes like Mark Adma, Troy Podmilsack, Zoe Aitken, snowboarder Neil Provo, and others, and that's why this outerwear collection not only looks so good, but each piece is more functional than ever, and they're all you're going to need in any conditions. To find out more about the new collection, head on over to outdoorresearch.com. My final sponsor this round is Ski Idaho. And if you haven't skied in Idaho, then you're missing the best kept ski secret in the nation. Think 19 uncrowded ski areas with epic terrain that all get a ton of snow. In Idaho, you'll ski a lot more than you're waiting in line, and they really have something for everyone. When you visit Idaho, Resorts like Sun Valley, Grand Targhee, Schweitzer, Silver, and Tamarack offer that on-mountain lodging experience, and there are so many other mountains to choose from throughout the state. Between the snow, the terrain, the award-winning restaurants, and experiences like horse-drawn sleigh rides, indoor water parks, spas, skating, guided snowshoeing, and so much more, I'm not kidding when I say there really is something for everyone this winter in Idaho. And if you haven't heard about the 5th and 6th grade passport program that allows kids to ride multiple times at each resort for only $29, you need to check it out. It's worth visiting Idaho just for that. To find out more about the passport program and all things skiing in Idaho, head on over to skiidaho.us. Those are my sponsors. Now it's time to jump back into the podcast. Does it get into your head? I mean, when you come back from the knee injury, after 2 years of surgeries, rehab, does it kind of get into your head when you start skiing again? Like, I don't want to get hurt again? Or are you able to block that all out and get back to being the old Kaya?
At that point, I had very little doubt. I was so convinced in myself that I could make it back, that I had the capacity. I had so much to give. I hadn't even gotten started yet. So I wasn't going to take no for an answer. And I certainly had doctors telling me I probably wasn't going to be able to ski again for both injuries, after the pancreas and after the knee. But I was headstrong, very stubborn, and very optimistic, and now I work in performance psychology with Dr. Mike Gervais, who was my sports psych back in the day. Now we work as a team of Olympians and scientists, and looking back, like, optimism is a foundational piece. It's a foundational mindset when you're an athlete, especially when you're an athlete going through or a high risk sport where you're going to be encountering major injuries. It's just part of the game, to have that long run vision.
It's funny. Something that you said that reminded me of something that popped up in my Instagram feed 5 minutes before we did a podcast. And it was Troy Podmilsack. He's, a slopestyle guy. And he was in front of one of the X Games interviewers, and he's shaking, and they put the microphone in front of his face. And they're like, "Troy, you're shaking. Are you cold or are you nervous?" The mic gets in his face. He's like, "Yeah, I am so scared. I do not want to do any of these tricks. They are so scary." And
yeah.
Did you not have that in your head, or were you always scared of the reality of consequences?
Oh, for sure. I was scared of the reality of consequences when I was jumping. So I would separate the two fears, or what we're talking about. One is like, did I believe in coming back? Did I believe that I had it in me to overcome the injury? Yes. So like, fear didn't really come into play because I knew in the long run I could get myself back. But in the moment, absolutely, I felt fear. And I think that's a common misconception with us freestyle athletes, is that we have no fear. And really anybody out there pushing the limits of what's possible, we have fear. I can assure you that we all feel fear. So it's not about not having fear. It's about developing a relationship with fear. And in order for us to push our capacities to see what we're really made of, we need to take those leaps, right? We need to lean into the fear, the scary things. And that's what high performers do. They learn to find that balance between risk and recklessness, and just pushing themselves just at that sweet spot.
And where you really need to push yourself at that sweet spot is your first X Games, because you get yourself healed up, and in 2009, you go to your first X Games. You probably thought when you were younger that the X Games was going to be on rollerblades, and it was going to be nice and warm, and it was going to be amazing. But all that was taken away from you when rollerblading was pulled out of the X Games, and you had to become a pro skier to get into X Games. Can you talk about how special that first X Games trip was for you?
Oh my gosh, it was one of my life goals, was to go to the X Games. Like you mentioned, I always wanted to go as a rollerblader. That wasn't possible. And so when I was invited 2009, my first X Games, it was a dream come true. And unfortunately, the weather was really tricky, and I blew out a few teeth actually that in practice. So it was a little tough to start with, but I ended up getting a bronze medal. Like, that was really the beginning for me. That's really when the momentum started for me.
When you get a bronze medal, do you look at it as you're the second loser, or are you stoked that you got a bronze medal?
I mean, in all honesty, at that time, I wasn't happy with a bronze medal, but I guess I call myself a recovering perfectionist, if you will, and perfectionism was my character trait for better or for worse, and that made me a great athlete because it was never enough. The result was never good enough unless it was gold, and I even at that, like I better had earned it with a good run that I thought was almost perfect, you know. So I wanted only the best. I trained, I had a diet, everything needed to be perfect. And so bronze, no, I wasn't happy with bronze at that point.
Okay, well, the next year you win your first X Games gold. You've won a lot more since then, but does anything compare to your first X Games gold medal?
Does anything compare? I mean, I've had so many beautiful, incredible moments in my both rollerblading and ski career. It's certainly one of the best moments of my life, one of the most memorable moments of my life, and will always hold a special place in my heart, that first X Games gold.
And I think the next season was 2011. That's like your undefeated season, I feel like. Is that, I mean, did you have an undefeated season? Am I wrong or am I right saying that?
I believe so. I think I had a couple undefeated seasons. I don't remember exactly. 2010, I'm pretty sure I was undefeated. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe your research will reveal I'm wrong. I certainly don't want to misspeak here, but I'm pretty sure 210, 211. 211, actually, I was, it's funny, like the articles would say dethroned. I didn't win the X Games. It was a silver medal in 2011. Oh, no, that was 2013. Excuse me. Sorry, it's all a jumble here.
Been a long time.
But yeah, there was a couple seasons where I was undefeated.
And then you blow the world's mind in 2011 at Nine Queens by landing the first Switch 10. And winning medals are one thing, but what's the feeling when you single-handedly progress the sport?
Yeah, really incredible moment. And I think what made it so special to me was the late Sarah Burke, my hero in skiing, my inspiration. She was at that event, and I remember anytime I got to ski with Sarah was just so special because we became friends, but I still always had I just always looked at her with this awe, you know, in her skiing. She was just an incredible human and athlete.
I think everybody did.
Oh yeah, like she had that, you know, that spark. Incredible, incredible person. And I remember I kept going switch nine, and she was like, she gave me a bit of shit. She's like, come on, like, you know, go for it. Like, let's go. Like, what are you waiting for? And I thought, like, oh, well, Sarah Burke's telling me to go for it. Like, I can't back down. I can't deny that. And so I went for it, and I landed the Switch 10, and it was a really, really cool, you know, badass moment for me. I don't know if I was the first ever to land it. I think Terrell might have landed a Switch 10, but I think it was the first in competition or something like that. But yeah, certainly a milestone for me.
Yep, that was a huge moment for the sport, and I'm glad you brought up Sarah because I was going to bring her up later, but she was such an important part of the sport, an important part of your career that we definitely had to bring her up in here. I guess the last contest I'll bring up in this thing is the Olympics, and you were coming off one of your 4 major knee surgeries. You were like 5 months out of surgery, which is crazy. 5 months out of surgery, you won the X Games. What did you have some kind of crazy surgery that no one else does these days?
I did. I did have a crazy surgery. I don't know how common it is these days. It was quite experimental back in the day, but yeah, it was a tough run into the Olympics. I blew my knee, so I tore my ACL 6 months to the day before the slopestyle event. And for you athletes out there who know about knee injuries, you know that you don't even touch snow before 6 months. You're not supposed to. At least that's the protocol I always knew. So that was a really tough blow for me. We were going home just so defeated for a couple days, and then I started picking up the phone, you know, and calling doctors, and I saw two doctors who told me there was no way I could make the timeline happen. And then I found the third doctor, Dr. Litchfield, who works with the Canadian alpine skiers. Really, really amazing doctor. And he said, you know, conventionally with the conventional route of a regular graft hamstring or patellar, you won't make it. But what we can try to do is intertwine the ligament, a cadaver ligament, and a Lars ligament, which is rubber. And the idea was that the rubber would get me out on snow sooner because it would be strong right off the bat. And then in the long term, the cadaver would kind of settle in. So that was the idea. And we went for it. I said, yeah, like, let's go. I need to try. I need to give this a go. And so it was, pretty successful. I would say it worked up until a certain point. It got me on snow at 3 months, which was insane.
Crazy.
3.5 months. Yeah, like absurd. I still look back and I blow my own mind sometimes. Winning X Games was also just completely unreal. I can't believe I pulled that one off. I felt strong at the time. And, in the meantime, what I always did, and I had a lot of injuries, probably half the time I spent in my ski career on snow and half in rehab. So I had a lot of time, and I spent a lot of time visualizing my tricks. And so when I got back on snow, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I'd been training the tricks in my mind for months. And so that's, I think, what made X Games possible.
Was there pain at all?
There was some irritation, but I was lucky to be supported by like a full-time physio who traveled with me, my homie Clark, who works with the Canadian team. So yeah, I had the support I needed. But having been through, I think by then I'd had 2 or 3 ACLs already. And this one didn't even compare. Like it was a much easier rehab.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So getting ready to go to the Olympics, you're like traveling to the Olympics and you get sick and you're like sick for 2 weeks and no one can figure out what's going on with you. So you've got this knee that you're worried about. You've got a sickness that's really screwing you up. And so this whole Olympic experience has been a nightmare, right?
Oh yeah. Olympics was really a tough one for me. Basically right after X, I flew to Europe, transitioned into the Olympics, and I got sick. I don't know if it was the flu, I don't know what it was, but when I got to the Olympics in Russia, I was a mess, and I had to be quarantined, so I was in a room alone, and no one wanted to, touch me with a 10-foot pole. No one wanted to come near me, avoiding me like the plague, because no one wants to get sick at the Olympics. So it was pretty isolating, pretty tough right off the bat. I was feeling shaky at best, and on course just feeling super weak and dislocating my shoulder, which my shoulder was already pretty loose, but that was just a sign of, my body is not feeling good. I just didn't have any of my pep, and day after day I just kept feeling worse and worse. And I don't know, when I talk about it, I try not to make it, I don't want it to sound like I'm making excuses, because at the end of the day, people just, sometimes we win and sometimes we don't win. But yeah, it was a tough one for me, for sure.
I mean, there's no excuses. You have 8 X Games gold medals, 5 AFP world titles. I don't know how many Dew Tour wins you have. You have a World Championships gold. So you've pretty much done it all. So there's no excuses being made. You were sick and you had a blown out knee and a dislocated shoulder as well. You had a lot of things going on, which makes sense that you didn't ski that well. But for someone like yourself, who is a perfectionist, who expects to be in the finals, does what happened at the Olympics, does it do anything to your mental health at all, or confidence or anything? Are you able to just compartmentalize that and move forward?
Oh gosh, does it ever? I had a full-blown identity crisis post-Olympics. This was a huge blow to my ego, a huge blow to my identity, and I came home feeling like the biggest loser in the world. And it took me over a year, 18 months, to shake that feeling and to start to find myself again. And arguably, whether I wish to recreate that scenario ever again or not, like, I don't want to say it was meant to happen, but at some point or another, I was going to need to confront this identity, my intricate kind of woven identity with skiing that was very complex, and I needed to confront that. And that was my moment. It was the first time I didn't qualify in a finals ever in my entire life, I think, in rollerblading and skiing. And yeah, it just wasn't my day, and very, very tough event for me. The months following were really difficult, but a lot of important soul searching.
And so you do that soul searching. I think you take a little while off from competing. You eventually do come back. I think you do one more X Games, or you get like 4th in big air, and then you say fuck it when it comes to going to, sorry, you don't like the word fuck, so I shouldn't have said it, but you didn't say it, I said it. So I could say tabernacle, because that's what you guys say up there. But either way, you don't do finals there. And then, you kind of, I won't want to say ride off into the sunset, but you retire. But what's going on behind the scenes and a lot of stuff that I've seen on the internet and reading about is a lot of pain that you're going through. And just, it sounds like you're having these uncontrollable headaches that are just torturing your life.
Yes, my headaches have been a passenger in my life for a long time, Mike. Actually, 2011 is when they first started.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And behind the scenes, I guess most people don't know that they started that early, but behind the scenes, I had all the scans. I had tons of doctors, therapists. I was doing a lot of stuff. Red Bull was supporting me. Team Canada was supporting me and trying to find out what was going on. And because there was no injury for the onset of these headaches. They just kind of came on. And I guess the best consensus is like maybe it was just overall the impact, kind of accumulated impact, maybe whiplash. And so that was difficult. It was at first, I don't know, the first 2-3 years I just kind of powered through, and I thought once the Olympics is done, I'm retiring because I can't do this anymore. I can't be in pain anymore. I can't push myself like this. And then when the Olympics went so poorly, my ego, I guess, like it just didn't feel finished. I didn't want to end on that note. And so despite the way I was feeling, and I was feeling horrible, just horrible.
I mean, is this like a 5 times a week you're having like a 3-hour headache where it's bringing you to tears and just ruining your life kind of thing?
Oh, no. It's the moment I wake up and it's there until I go to sleep. It was 24 on 24. Yeah. And I had that kind of headache for about 10 years until they started to somewhat, I wouldn't say subside. Like I still have headaches every single day of my life, but the degree varies and the intensity varies. And the frequency, like they'll just be sometimes a bit easier, sometimes a bit tougher. But yeah, first 10 years, I'm talking 24 and 24, brutality. Hardest thing, hands down. Like you look at all my surgeries, pancreas, knees, everything. Like this journey with chronic pain has been the hardest thing I've ever had to contend with.
And, well, I know these days you're a mindset coach with Michael Gervais, and he's one of the best sports psychologists in the world. He actually works with a good buddy of mine out here, and he's done a lot of shit with the Seahawks and a lot of other people as well. But
right.
When you're not working with Michael, what's your day-to-day life like? I mean, is it something where you're experiencing pain all day long and it's hard to work?
I am experiencing pain on a regular basis, yes, every day. Maybe I've got an hour or two where I don't have a headache if I'm lucky. But yeah, I've learned to manage life with a headache. It's been a major adjustment. Most of the things that I've loved at some point in my life, I had to kind of ease off of. Sports, for example, I pretty much only walk around now. I've done some rollerblading here and there the last couple of years, but it's just I pay too heavy a price for it when I do. So I've backed off of that and I manage. And I would say that I thrive, with pain. And it's this whole other, I don't know how to explain it. It's another life. It's a different way of living, but it's very worthwhile. I still feel like I can excel. I love what I do. I lean into it. I still love taking risks. They're just different types of risks. I'm not able to go out and fly on skis or rollerblades anymore, but I've learned to manage and to thrive despite the pain.
And when we think about it all, and you look at skiing and skating, I mean, where do you attribute a lot of the damage from? I mean, is it skating without a helmet and in the streets when you're younger, or is it skiing with the bigger airs and the higher velocity? I mean, is there any way to judge that, or do you not even think about that?
I've thought about it, and I don't think I have an answer. I think my nervous system just became so worked, and of course there was a lot of whiplash, a lot of impact on the head and neck. But there's a lot of athletes who sustain those things and feel okay. And I don't want to knock on either rollerblading or skiing or the people that were helping me throughout my journey. I think it was some hard impact paired with a lack of listening, a lack of truly listening to what my body was saying. And I think anyone in their right mind, when they have headaches 24 hours a day for years on end, would pull out. And I didn't listen to my body. I continued to push, and I pushed way too far. And now, slowly, very, very, very slowly, I'm learning to heal my nervous system. so that it gives me less of the alarm, and the alarm is the headache.
Well, I hope that heals and gets better every single day, a little better every single day, and you are pain-free as soon as you possibly can be pain-free. But I'm not a doctor. I don't know if that's ever going to happen. I just hope that happens. I'm allowed to have hope. But that is the body of our podcast. Now it's time for how I end these podcasts, and I do it with something that I call Inappropriate Questions. This is where I get someone that you know to ask 3 questions, and they can be anything. And this week I was able to get a pro skier who is also a great friend of yours. You were her bridesmaid. I'm talking about the legendary Ashley Battersby. And Ashley came up with 3 inappropriate questions for you. And are you ready for question number 1 from Ashley?
Sure, let's go.
All right, here we go.
Okay, so my first question for you, Kaya. We all know that you're a woman of many talents, being the best female rollerbladers to making incredible resin art, public speaker, huge plant and animal lover. But what I want to know is, what is one random secret talent or weird daily habit that you have that has absolutely nothing to do with skiing, or that the public doesn't know about you?
All right.
That's a great question. That the public doesn't know about me. I feel like I'm pretty open with all the things. So I don't know. I guess most people, this isn't so juicy, but most people don't know that I'm like a complete plant addict. Like, I am a big plant nerd, and I have probably more than 50 plants in my home, and I could walk around, all of them different, and I could tell you every single plant name. They all have names, and I can tell you about the species of plants as well. So that's my little geek side.
Do you use plants as medicine? Like, a lot of people will use edibles and stuff to help them lessen pain. Do you do that stuff?
I've tried. I mean, I've worked with naturopaths, and I've tried that route. But no, I don't grow my own medicine.
Okay, just checking. All right, we will jump into question number 2.
All right, question number 2. We've been through everything together. You cried with me when I blew my first ACL. You were my bridesmaid at my wedding. We traveled all over Bali together, chasing the world and skiing. You've been my ride or die in this industry for years. You've always liked women, and you've told me once before that I was too pretty for you. So I have to ask, after all of our history, why did you never ask me to marry you?
Oh, Ash, you are so funny. I can't believe you're bringing that back around. It's funny that she would ask me that sometimes. And obviously, Ashley is a very beautiful girl and talented in all the ways. And I don't know, I didn't want to I don't mess around with my friends. I don't kiss and tell, and I keep my private and intimate life separate from my friendships. And I valued Ashley's friendship so much. Like you heard, I was her bridesmaid, and that was the most important piece. So, Ash, I'm sorry I never proposed, but maybe in another life.
All right, it sounds like you don't shit where you eat, or something like that.
Something like that.
Let's go with your final inappropriate question. Here we go.
Third inappropriate question. Being online pen pals, before we ever met, I looked up to you on rollerblades, and you wrote me when you landed your first 180. And 1 month later, I met you at the Vermont Open while you were suddenly throwing switch 720s, winning everything. So I have to know, somewhere between that first 180 and dominating every contest in your prime, when did you start waking up, looking in the mirror and thinking, wow, these other girls don't even come close?
Oh, she's being so generous here. I don't know that I ever looked in the mirror and said, wow, these girls don't come close, but I certainly pretty quickly felt, because of my rapid progression, that I could contend with some of the best, and I felt confident about that. So I don't have an exact timing, but I certainly had a lot of belief in myself, maybe too much. Maybe my ego was a little too inflated at the time, admittedly. And I guess the subsequent injuries in my career were necessary to humble me a little bit and bring me back to the ground. But I always had a strong belief in myself.
Well, that's quite the perspective, and that's Inappropriate Questions, and that's our podcast. And I'm so happy we did this one because I've known about your rollerblading from the time you were like 14 years old. We don't know each other at all. I think we've met at a few ski events and skate events over the years, but you're the one athlete that proved my theory that if you were great on blades, you could transfer that to skiing pretty easily. And you not only did that, but you took over an industry in months and dominated it for like 5 years after that. And it's a tribute to your talent, your vision, your work ethic, and so many other factors. And it's a bummer to hear that you're in pain, but while that's part of the game, I hope they can fix that for you soon. And I thank you for sharing your story, and I thank you for your time.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, it was a pleasure to chat. I'm thrilled to finally have connected. It's been years, and I appreciate you having me on the pod to speak my truth, to go down memory lane. And yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to all your listeners too. You can check me out on Instagram at Kaya. I talk a lot about performance mindset. That's the environment in which I work right now. I love my work with Dr. Mike Gervais at Finding Mastery. So you can check us out also on at Finding Mastery on Instagram or findingmastery.com. We do some pretty cool stuff. Check us out. And lastly, I'm going to be announcing for the CBC, which is the Canadian Broadcast Corporation, in February for the Olympics. So tune in. I'm going to be covering half pipe, slope, and big air. It's going to be fun. So yeah, thanks again, Mike, and hope we can do it again.
So that was time with Kaya Turski, and what a story. While the bottom dropped out of blading, if it didn't, Kaya and Fabiola de Silva would own 2 of the slots on the international Mount Rushmore of skating, but that sport lost steam and momentum and became more of an activity. So then Kaya decided she needed to make a pivot, and she ended up taking over the world of skiing. Cool idea to have, but a really hard one to execute. But not for Kaya. She took the ski world by storm and dominated from the get-go. But there was a price to be paid, and that's what Kaya's experiencing these days. Hopefully she gets better by the day, week, and month, and she'll be pain-free sooner than later. She's working on that as we speak because there's nothing worse than living in pain. That's the podcast. At this point, I want to thank you for listening, ask you to review me wherever you listen, and ask you to support my incredible sponsors who make this show happen. They are Elan Skis, Outdoor Research, Best Day Brewing, Ski Idaho, and Insta360 Video. Have a great week, everyone.